The relentless sun hung high over Silver Creek, casting shimmering waves of heat over the dry landscape. Cordelia Bennett wiped a trail of sweat from her forehead with the back of her dusty hand and straightened slowly, stretching her tired muscles. Working alone on her modest ranch was demanding, yet she never complained. Each repaired fence, each harvested crop was a testament to her resilience, to the unyielding spirit she'd inherited from her father. Cordelia glanced toward the distant hills, a soft sigh escaping her lips. Her younger brother Nate had moved into town months ago, leaving her to maintain the ranch alone. Though she missed his bright laughter and optimistic chatter, she understood his restless spirit, yearned for something beyond their quiet land. Still, she couldn't shake the persistent worry since he'd stopped sending word home. Something gnawed at her, a shadow of unease she couldn't quite name. A sudden sound interrupted her thoughts, the rhythmic beat of horse hooves, approaching at an easy pace. Shielding her eyes against the glare, she spotted the silhouette of a lone rider emerging from the dust cloud. Her heart skipped uncertainly as she recognized the figure drawing nearer, Jonah Reed. Jonah Reed had arrived in Silver Creek a year prior, a quiet man whose mysterious past fueled endless whispers in town. Tall and rugged, with eyes that seemed to carry hidden stories, Jonah was both respected and feared by the townsfolk. Cordelia had never exchanged more than polite greetings with him, maintaining her distance as did most others. Now, inexplicably, he was here, riding straight toward her ranch. Cordelia's grip tightened instinctively around the wooden post she'd just fixed. Jonah halted a short distance away, tipping his wide-brimmed hat slightly. "Afternoon, Miss Bennett," he greeted in a calm, even voice. "Mr. Reed," she replied cautiously, striving to keep her voice steady and unreadable. "What brings you all the way out here?" Jonah swung down gracefully from his horse, his boots hitting the dry earth with a muted thud. He paused, considering his words carefully before speaking. "I apologize for coming uninvited," he began quietly, "but I have news about Nate." Cordelia felt her heart tighten painfully in her chest, fear and hope entwined in a confusing rush of emotion. She swallowed hard, fighting to remain composed. "Is he all right? Did he send you?" Jonah's dark eyes softened, carrying an unmistakable sadness. "He hasn't sent me, but he left Silver Creek suddenly, a few weeks back. I found some things he left behind. Letters, personal belongings, things you should see." 100 questions flooded Cordelia's mind, each more urgent than the last, yet she forced herself to remain calm. "Why are you bringing them to me? We've barely exchanged a word before today." Jonah held her gaze steadily, sincerity evident in his expression. "Nate trusted me, Miss Bennett. Town ever have. And considering what I found, I thought you deserved to know." Cordelia hesitated, her instinctive caution clashing fiercely with her desperate need for answers. Yet something in Jonah's eyes, a quiet strength and genuine honesty, convinced her she could trust him, at least for now. "Come inside, Mr. Reed," she said softly, motioning toward the modest ranch house. "Show me what you've brought." Jonah nodded respectfully, following her up the worn wooden steps and into the cool shade of the house. Inside, Cordelia quickly cleared a space at the kitchen table, watching Jonah place a carefully wrapped bundle of letters and belongings before her. Her breath caught sharply as she recognized Nate's familiar scrawl. Gently, she began to unfold the letters, her eyes quickly scanning the words written hastily across each page. Nate's sentences were urgent, filled with concerns about Silver Creek and hints of something deeply troubling involving the town's sheriff, a man she'd always thought trustworthy. "Nate was investigating Sheriff Landry," Jonah explained quietly. "He believed the sheriff was involved in activities harming the town. Nate wanted proof before he spoke openly." Cordelia's eyes widened, shock quickly replaced by fear as she processed Jonah's words. "Why didn't Nate tell me? Why didn't he come to me for help?" Jonah's expression softened further, a gentleness emerging through his usually guarded demeanor. He wanted to protect you. Nate knew what he was doing was dangerous. He didn't want you involved. Cordelia's throat tightened with emotion, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. She quickly blinked them away, refusing to show weakness. And what about you, Mr. Reed? Why involve yourself in this at all? Jonah hesitated, a shadow briefly crossing his face. I owed Nate a debt. When I first came to Silver Creek, he was one of the few who treated me with kindness, who believed I deserved a second chance. Helping him, helping you, is the least I can do. Cordelia studied Jonah's face carefully, searching for any trace of deception, but found only quiet sincerity reflected back at her. Slowly, she nodded in acceptance, feeling a tentative trust forming despite her reservations. All right, she finally said softly, determination replacing her initial fear. Then let's find out exactly what my brother uncovered and what we can do to make things right. Their eyes met in quiet agreement, a silent understanding forming between them. Neither knew precisely what lay ahead, but both realized that, from this moment, their paths were irrevocably entwined. Cordelia drew a steadying breath, lifting her chin with newfound resolve. We'll start tomorrow, Mr. Reed, together. Jonah inclined his head respectfully, a faint smile softening his rugged features. Together, Miss Bennet. As Jonah departed into the twilight, Cordelia stood watching him disappear into the distance. By uncertainty, felt lighter than it had in months. She was no longer alone. She had an ally, perhaps even a friend, in Jonah Reed. The horizon blazed softly as the sun dipped below the hills, painting the sky in shades of crimson and gold. Cordelia turned slowly back toward her home, prepared for whatever challenges lay ahead, feeling hope ignite gently within her heart. Tomorrow marked the beginning of something new, something uncertain yet filled with the promise of truth, courage, and perhaps even redemption. Cordelia rose with the first golden rays of dawn, sleep having eluded her throughout the restless night. Thoughts of Nate, Jonah, and the disturbing revelations from the previous day swirled endlessly in her mind. Determination was etched clearly in her features as she prepared breakfast, her simple routine offering a fragile comfort amid uncertainty. A gentle knock on the door brought her sharply back to reality. She opened it cautiously, meeting Jonah's composed gaze. The morning sunlight accentuated the strong lines of his face, casting intriguing shadows that hinted at the hidden depth of his past. "Good morning, Miss Bennet," Jonah greeted respectfully, removing his hat. His voice was steady and reassuring, instantly calming the lingering unease she had felt. "Good morning, Mr. Reed," Cordelia replied, stepping aside to welcome him in. "Please, join me. Breakfast is ready." Jonah hesitated briefly, clearly unused to such hospitality. He offered her a grateful nod as he entered. "That's kind of you, thank you." They shared their meal quietly at first, the silence more comfortable than either anticipated. Cordelia found herself glancing curiously at Jonah, noticing small details, the faded scars on his hands, the way his eyes softened when he mentioned Nate. Each detail seemed to unravel another thread of the mystery surrounding him. After they finished eating, Jonah cleared his throat, breaking their comfortable silence. "We should start by retracing Nate's steps in town. Maybe someone saw him before he left." Cordelia nodded firmly. "I've known these people all my life. If there's information, we'll find it." Together they rode into Silver Creek. The town bustled with morning activity, children playing, shopkeepers opening their doors, townsfolk exchanging cheerful greetings. Yet beneath the familiar warmth, Cordelia now sensed an undercurrent of tension and secrecy she had never noticed before. They visited Mr. Thompson first, who ran the general store. He remembered Nate clearly, but had little information to offer beyond vague recollections of Nate's agitation. Mrs. Harper, who owned the local boarding house, mentioned Nate's quiet conversations with strangers passing through town. Each new detail added fragments to a puzzle they were slowly piecing together. Their inquiries eventually led them to Doc Everett, the town's physician, known for his discretion and quiet wisdom. Demeanor reassuring. "Doc?" Cordelia began carefully, her voice steady but betraying her anxiety. "Nate was looking into something concerning Sheriff Landry. Did he ever speak to you about it?" Doc Everett adjusted his glasses thoughtfully, a sympathetic sadness filling his eyes. "He came to me once, deeply troubled. He mentioned seeing the sheriff meet outsiders at odd hours, exchanging items, discreetly. Nate believed it involved illegal activities." Cordelia felt her stomach twist uneasily. She exchanged a meaningful glance with Jonah, whose eyes darkened with concern. "Did Nate mention where these meetings took place?" Jonah asked quietly. Doc Everett nodded slowly. "Out near the abandoned mine, west of town." Nate was worried about getting too close without proof. "Thank you, Doc," Cordelia said gratefully, rising to leave. "You've been more help than you know." Outside, Jonah gently placed his hand on Cordelia's arm, stopping her momentarily. "We need to be careful. If the sheriff suspects we're onto him, things could get complicated quickly." Cordelia looked into Jonah's eyes, sensing his protective concern. Her voice remained firm, filled with quiet determination. "I have to see this through, Jonah. Nate risked everything. I owe it to him to find the truth." He studied her closely, admiration mingling with a hint of worry. Finally, he gave a reluctant nod. "Then we'll do this together. Tonight, when no one's watching." Their plans set, they rode quietly back toward the ranch, each absorbed in thought. Cordelia felt a strange comfort, knowing Jonah stood beside her, steadfast and unwavering. As evening fell, painting the sky in hues of indigo and gold, Cordelia prepared herself mentally for whatever they might uncover. She could sense that answers lay ahead, answers that would irrevocably change Silver Creek, and perhaps even their lives. Under the quiet watch of the emerging stars, Cordelia and Jonah prepared to confront the hidden truths lurking just beyond the horizon, unaware of the dangers and revelations that awaited them. Nightfall wrapped Silver Creek in a blanket of silence, pierced only occasionally by distant owl calls and the rustle of leaves in the gentle evening breeze. Cordelia stood quietly on the porch of her ranch house, staring thoughtfully toward the west, her heart beating a nervous rhythm as she waited for Jonah. Her thoughts drifted between worry and resolve, each moment stretching endlessly, until she heard the familiar, soft sound of horse hooves. Jonah appeared from the shadows, dismounting with practiced ease. The starlight softened his rugged features, but his eyes were serious, their mission pressing heavily upon them. Cordelia cast occasional glances toward Jonah, admiring the strength he radiated, yet sensing beneath it a vulnerability he carefully guarded. When they reached the outskirts of the mine, Jonah raised a hand, signaling her to stop. They tethered their horses securely among the trees, continuing the final stretch on foot, moving silently through the darkness. As they approached, the old mine loomed ahead, eerie and imposing in the moonlight. Suddenly, Jonah stopped, pulling Cordelia gently behind a cluster of large rocks. Voices drifted softly from the entrance of the mine, confirming their suspicions. Cordelia strained her ears, heart pounding, as she recognized Sheriff Landry's familiar voice, authoritative yet oddly hushed. Beside her, Jonah's expression hardened, his jaw tightening with quiet anger. "These shipments must stop soon," Sheriff Landry was saying, urgency clear in his tone. "The town's getting suspicious." Another voice, unfamiliar and deep, responded coolly, "We decide when it ends, Sheriff. Remember, your role is to keep the town quiet, not dictate terms." Cordelia felt her blood run cold. The man she'd known and trusted all her life was collaborating in something clearly dangerous. Jonah reached out, gently touching her arm in silent reassurance. She nodded back, drawing strength from his quiet presence. "We need proof," Jonah whispered, barely above a breath. "Something tangible to take to the townspeople." Cordelia nodded, eyes scanning the dimly lit area. She spotted crates stacked just inside the mine's entrance, partially hidden. Jonah noticed too, and with a silent glance of agreement, they carefully approached, staying low and hidden by the shadows. Reaching the crates, Cordelia gently opened one, her breath catching in surprise at the contents. Inside were valuable goods, clearly marked from a recent shipment stolen near a neighboring town. Jonah quickly withdrew a small notebook, jotting down details and dates. Suddenly, footsteps echoed closer, snapping their attention back to danger. Jonah swiftly closed the crate, pulling Cordelia into the shadows against the mine wall, his arm protectively around her shoulders. They stood frozen, breathing shallowly as Sheriff Landry stepped outside, suspiciously scanning the area. Cordelia pressed closer to Jonah, feeling the rapid beat of his heart beneath her fingertips, matching the intensity of her own. Seconds stretched into eternity until finally the sheriff returned inside, voices fading into silence again. "Let's go," Jonah whispered urgently, guiding her swiftly away from the mine and back toward their horses. Determination and something deeper she couldn't yet name. "Yes," she agreed quietly, her voice strong despite the trembling within. "Together we'll see this through." As they rode homeward beneath the watchful stars, Cordelia realized her life had forever changed. Danger and secrets had brought them together, but something else was growing between them. Trust, respect, and perhaps even the beginnings of love. Tomorrow would bring challenges, she knew, but tonight, under the endless sky, Cordelia found solace and strength in Jonah's steadfast presence, ready to face whatever lay ahead. The following morning dawned crisp and clear, the rising sun casting warm hues across the landscape, yet Cordelia's heart was burdened with uncertainty. She barely slept, haunted by thoughts of Sheriff Landry's betrayal and what awaited her in town. Still, determination filled her chest, solidifying her resolve to stand firm. After a quiet breakfast, Jonah and Cordelia set off toward Silver Creek. Their silence was heavy, filled with shared apprehension. Cordelia glanced over, finding reassurance in Jonah's unwavering calmness. His presence had become an anchor, comforting her amid growing unease. As they entered town, the usual lively atmosphere seemed subdued. People whispered cautiously, eyes following them curiously yet warily. They dismounted near the town hall, aware of eyes watching closely from behind curtains and half-opened doors. "They're frightened," Cordelia murmured, her voice carrying sadness and compassion. "Sheriff Landry has held power here for so long." Jonah nodded solemnly. "Fear is powerful, but truth is stronger." They stepped onto the porch of the town hall, gathering their courage. Cordelia's pulse quickened when Sheriff Landry emerged from inside, smiling pleasantly though his eyes betrayed suspicion. "Miss Bennett, Jonah," he greeted calmly. "Early visit to town?" Cordelia squared her shoulders, steadying her voice. "Sheriff Landry, we need to speak openly, with everyone." The sheriff's expression hardened subtly, but he maintained a facade of calm authority. "Of course, the town deserves transparency." Quickly, word spread, and townsfolk gathered, curiosity overcoming their hesitations. Soon, a small crowd stood in anticipation, whispering quietly among themselves. Cordelia stepped forward, heart racing yet voice clear. "We've discovered troubling truths about stolen shipments hidden at the old mine. Sheriff Landry, you've been part of it." Gasps rippled through the gathered crowd. Sheriff Landry's calm facade faltered momentarily before he composed himself again, raising a placating hand. "Ridiculous claims," he countered smoothly. "Where is your proof?" Jonah stepped up confidently, holding the notebook high for confident mask slip, desperation flickering in his eyes.
"This town deserves honesty."
Cordelia addressed the townsfolk gently, her voice filled with sincerity.
"We've always trusted Sheriff Landry. I understand your shock.
I felt the same, but we must face the truth together, for Silver Creek's sake."
Slowly, cautious nods turned into determined agreement. Several stepped forward, voicing support.
Sheriff Landry, realizing his position was compromised, took a reluctant step backward.
"Justice will be served,"
Jonah declared firmly.
"Silver Creek will be free from deceit."
Sheriff Landry met Jonah's eyes briefly, acknowledging defeat with silent resentment, before walking quietly back inside the hall, shoulders heavy.
Relief swept through Cordelia, mixed with sorrow. Jonah gently squeezed her hand, quietly supportive.
"You've done well, Cordelia. Your courage inspired them."
Cordelia met his gaze gratefully, feeling a warmth spread within her chest.
It was all courage, Jonah, together.
As the crowd dispersed, slowly embracing the truth, Cordelia felt profound pride in her town and deep gratitude for Jonah's unwavering strength.
Together, they'd faced danger, exposed corruption, and now stood poised to heal Silver Creek. Walking quietly back to their horses, Jonah turned to her, thoughtfully.
"Your brother would be proud."
Tears glistened softly in Cordelia's eyes, though her smile remained bright.
I believe he would.
Together, they rode away from the town hall, leaving behind chaos replaced by hope. Cordelia knew their struggles weren't entirely over, but courage had united them. Courage, trust, and perhaps something deeper still, blossoming quietly between them. Days turned into weeks, and Silver Creek gradually began to heal. With Sheriff Landry removed from office and justice finally served, townsfolk slowly regained their sense of security and unity. Cordelia spent her days helping neighbors rebuild trust, her efforts warmly welcomed and deeply appreciated.
Yet, despite these positive changes, Cordelia couldn't shake a lingering restlessness. Nate's absence still weighed heavily on her heart, a constant reminder of loss even amid newfound hope. Jonah remained close, their bond growing steadily stronger as they shared the burden of healing a wounded community.
One serene evening, Cordelia stood quietly on her porch, lost in thought beneath the comforting expanse of stars. She sensed Jonah's approach before she heard his gentle footsteps. Turning, she offered him a soft smile, warmth flooding her chest at his presence.
"You seem deep in thought."
Jonah observed gently, stepping closer. Cordelia nodded slowly, her gaze drifting toward the horizon.
I was thinking about Nate, about how much he loved Silver Creek. He would have been so relieved to see this peace.
Jonah stood silently beside her for a moment, his voice tender when he finally spoke.
"Nate's spirit lives on through everything you've done, Cordelia."
Honored his memory beautifully. Cordelia's eyes filled with quiet gratitude as she met Jonah's gaze. "I couldn't have done this without you, Jonah. Your strength gave me courage." Jonah stepped closer, his expression softening with a vulnerability she'd rarely seen. "It was your strength that inspired me," he admitted quietly, reaching out hesitantly to take her hand. "Meeting you changed everything for me. I found something I thought I'd never have again: hope." Cordelia squeezed his hand gently, heart swelling with affection. "You've given me hope, too. More than I ever expected to find again." A quiet moment stretched between them, filled with understanding and shared emotion. Finally, Jonah drew a gentle breath, his eyes earnest and sincere. "Cordelia, Silver Creek has become more than just a place for me. It's become home. But it wouldn't be complete without you by my side." Cordelia's heart fluttered, warmth spreading through every fiber of her being. She smiled softly, tears of happiness glistening in her eyes. "There's nowhere else I'd rather be than here, with you." Gently, Jonah leaned forward, touching his forehead to hers in a tender, intimate gesture. Under the soft glow of moonlight, their hearts finally aligned completely, their journey together affirmed by a shared promise of love and devotion. As dawn broke gently over Silver Creek, casting golden hues across the landscape, Cordelia and Jonah stood united, ready to embrace a future filled with endless possibility. Together, they faced a new beginning, their spirits forever intertwined by trust, courage, and love.